Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Data Leadership Podcast. I'm really excited about this one, and today I'm joined by Michiel van Staden, all the way from Johannesburg, and he's going to be discussing the topic around transitioning into a data leader, and I think it's one that's on plenty of people's radar, and it's always interesting to see how someone made that transition, why they made that transition, and also some of the challenges faced when doing that, which I know there'll be a lot of people out there that are maybe thinking of going down the leadership route. And I think is a big question. I think when you get to a certain point in your career, it tends to be one of two avenues, and to get to a certain level, it often involves leadership. So yeah, it'd be great to hear from yourself. And I've been looking forward to this one because Michiel's really big on his self-development, on sharing his knowledge. He's done a lot of work around this, and I thought, what better person to have on the podcast as well. So I think if we just start off with a bit of an intro about yourself, and go from there, Michiel.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks so much for the opportunity, Rich. Really looking forward to the discussion today. It's about sharing some of my learnings. So maybe just high level quickly about myself. I studied statistics, so I kind of come from that side of the world. I've been working in the banking industry for about 13-14 years now. So all of that within data analytics. And I've been fortunate to have the opportunity to really move around quite a bit within the bank, kind of alongside my leadership journey. So really looking forward to unpacking that a bit more.
Yeah, and I mean, you've been there, 13, 14 years, you've been in a long time within that area, but actually your role's evolved quite a bit along the way as well. So, I mean, what's your role at the moment within the business, which I think I didn't mention actually, but the Absa Group?
So it's quite an interesting role that I'm currently in. I've kind of moved from being very close to the product areas and kind of supporting specific product areas with their data journey and leading the teams in that space, to where I'm now sitting in a more central space. And we're really starting to look at how do we increasingly embed data principles wider into the organization. How do we share some of the learnings that we've learned in some of the specific product areas? And also, how do we increasingly build strategic data solutions that people can leverage more widely? And then there's also a big education and I suppose data literacy kind of angle to that. So how do we, from this smaller central team, how do we kind of guide both data and non-data people on the data journey?
Yeah, exactly. Connecting the data teams to the business, which is just can be such a problem for a lot of organizations, and it is so key for the success of a team, I think, as a whole. And you recently won the Data Analytics Leader of the Year 2020. I think I've got that right. Was that around Johannesburg, or do you just want to tell us a little bit more about that?
So it's Corinium Global Intelligence that kind of issued the award. And it was around the DataCon Africa region. So something I'm really proud of. The award was kind of based on my journey over the last, say, 2-3 years, kind of working very closely with the product areas and the businesses around where data fits into their strategy, and then really developing how data can have an impact on the business and the strategic direction. And then also, as I moved into leadership, kind of how do you kind of take the young people coming into the business on this journey, and how do you upskill them and build the analytics teams? Really proud of what we've been able to achieve, and really grateful for the recognition.
Yeah, definitely. It's always good to get recognition, and a big achievement, and also must give you confidence moving forward. and progressing within that leadership role as well. I mean, just give us an idea of where you're at in your career at the moment, and how that transition came about, going from more hands-on to more hands-off, and where you are now.
Yeah, so I suppose where I come from, as I mentioned, from the stats side, it's very technical, especially when you're still studying. It's a lot of very theoretical stuff that you learn in your studies. And my background before that was also kind of coming from the numbers side, always kind of enjoying that. So yeah, coming into business initially is quite a lot of figuring out how you practically add value in a business setting, because you've got all these technical skills now, but they're very much theoretical and academic. You need to now start really applying them. And I've been fortunate within Absa to have the opportunity to, as I mentioned, move around quite a bit. So I kind of started in fraud analytics, which was a very interesting dynamic space to start in. And from there, I've kind of moved. I was in credit risk for a bit. We really get to understand, especially for a credit business, kind of the nuts and bolts of the business, of how it actually operates, what kind of risks it takes, which makes its money, all of those kind of things. So it was a really good school for getting to know the business side of things very well. And then, from there, sorry, you want to add?
No, I was just going to say definitely, and it's so important to have that business understanding, and especially if you've come from a very theoretical background within mathematics, statistics, stuff like that. I imagine when you apply the business side to it, it can become a very powerful blend of experience, really.
Yeah, you learn a lot of, I suppose, core analytical and technical skills in your studies. So yeah, those things can be really powerful if you can then get to know your business and your subject matter very well. You can really start applying it, because from there I kind of managed to move into more operational areas where you're looking at how data and analytics can add value in a call center environment or in a collection shop. And then I've kind of managed to move into the digital and the marketing space as well, where it's again kind of a different angle, different types of data that you're collecting and different ways of using it. So that's given me a really good basis and overview of how do you practically use technical data analytics skills in a business setup to very practically add value.
Yeah,
and then from there it's sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, how did you find that? How easily did you find to pick up that business context, and especially across so many different areas as well? So, for instance, like going into the marketing and digital side of things, how easy was it to actually start applying what you know to that sort of area?
Yeah, what I found is, initially you need to do a lot of listening and a lot of asking questions. Because initially, even though you've got the technical skills, you just don't understand the area well enough to really come up with viable, practical solutions to anything. So you really need to take that time to embed yourself in the area. And often for technical people, I've personally found it can be quite a struggle, because you're quite comfortable in your own space, figuring out technical problems, playing around with data, but you really need to push yourself to engage with the people around you more, because that's where you then really get to understand the business area. You can't really get to know the business without talking to people. You need to engage with them very closely and learn a lot from them initially before you can start really adding value.
It's a really good point. And I think it's not natural for everyone to go from that technical focus to some of the other elements to it, where you're actually trying to build relationships across a business. And I think it's so key for people now. And I do think it's transitioning. I think when people are coming out of university and bits like that, I think they are trying to gain that experience as quickly as possible, because it's pretty much a given you need it now. So yeah, interesting. And what first made you thought about getting into leadership then? What appealed to you about making that move?
Mm. Yeah, I suppose there's a few angles to that. As you kind of alluded to earlier, there does sometimes get you sometimes get to points where I suppose you can kind of hit a ceiling, especially when you've now explored a whole range of different areas. You've kind of, as an individual contributor, you've kind of done a lot of it. Um, and from there, you kind of need to start assessing, where do you go from here? Because in business, in reality, you can never really stand still. It's very difficult to kind of, I don't know, stay in the same role, doing the same thing for a very long, extended period, because the business evolves, roles evolve. So you need to kind of constantly be moving. And at some point, or at various points, you need to kind of figure out in which direction you're going to move next. What is going to make sense for you? And I suppose, yeah, I got to that point where I felt like individually I kind of achieved quite a bit, explored quite a bit, and yeah, I suppose I kind of needed a new challenge in a sense, personally. But an interesting point that I want to touch on, and this is where I believe a lot of the benefit in leadership kind of sits, is I suppose with getting real satisfaction out of your job and your role. I suppose I managed to deliver individually on a few projects where I thought this was really amazing, great work. But I don't know, what I personally found was that a lot of that achievement was kind of empty, in a sense, where you feel like you've achieved this amazing thing. To a large extent, you're often the only one that really understands what went into that.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to sometimes share that achievement with other people, and really get that sense that together you've really achieved something. And as I started moving more into leadership and started focusing more on the other people around me and how I help them to achieve their goals, and be successful in their projects, I just kind of experienced, I suppose, much greater sense of satisfaction, where you can see other people achieving and you can really then celebrate successes with them, and share those, rather than having what I experienced as a more empty self-satisfaction just in your own delivery.
I think that's a really good point. Really good point. I think it's a sign maybe that, you know, leadership is the way for yourself, and maybe if there's someone out there that is feeling that same sort of feeling there around not maybe be as satisfied when they complete a good project or a good piece of work, and feel that they actually get more from, you know, mentoring someone else and sharing as a team and being part of putting that together, and then getting a total different type of satisfaction by the sounds of it.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting. And what did you have any doubts about moving into a leadership role? Did you have any concerns before you actually said, you know, yeah, this is for me?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think personally, I actually delayed it a few times where there was kind of potential opportunities to
Oh,
move
really?
into management and leadership earlier. But where I really enjoyed kind of the technical stuff, I was busy with quite a bit still. And I felt like there was more areas that I wanted to explore individually before I moved into management and leadership. Because it can also sometimes seem, especially if you're still kind of technical and delivering individually yourself, it can often be very hard to kind of figure out what management and leadership actually does, because you're doing most of the work. So what are they actually doing? And yeah, so I suppose there's that side to it, and there's also I don't know. You can read so many books about leadership and go on so many courses, but when you then really start moving into leadership yourself, it's only then that it really starts to hit home how fundamental this change of your role and what you very practically going to be doing is, because it's sometimes gradual where you're still involved in some of the technical stuff, but increasingly it becomes more drastic where you have to really start letting go of the technical stuff, letting go of solving the problems yourself, and increasingly your job almost becomes a totally different job. Even when you're in a technical field, it increasingly becomes about how you get more out of other people. And how do you develop them? How do you inspire them and motivate them? And that's really where all your time and your energy goes. It's all about the people. Now you get the most out of them and support them in what they need, and less about whatever technical or other field it is that you're in.
And I think that's one of the hardest things from conversations I had, is people are worried about stepping away from the technical side, which is the part that they enjoy and the part they got into data for, that they've maybe done for years and years. And it's, am I going to regret it? Am I going to leave that side of things and miss it? And I think it's really a really hard leap to make, because I speak to loads of people that want to come back from that and they move into a leadership role. It's not for them, or it's one of those leadership roles where actually you're in meetings all the time and, you're sort of babysitting and you've not even got the power and the influence to go and make a difference and lead at a strategic level, which is by the sounds of it, what you're saying. And, they don't maybe understand what a true leader or a leader should be like, and it doesn't work out for whatever reason. And I think it's a really hard leap to make. And I think it's an interesting point that you're saying around, you sort of don't even know until you're in the role, and you then have a real appreciation for what good leaders do and how important it is. Where do you even start with trying to prepare yourself for something like that? Is it a case that you just, you have to learn on the job? You have to pick it up and, you've either got the personality fit for it or you haven't? Or do you think it's something that you can really, really train yourself on and really, really prepare for?
Yeah, as I mentioned, when I moved into my first management role, I read so many books, went on so many courses, and you start to get all of these most idealistic type ideas of what best practice is and what these amazing inspirational leaders are doing and how you're going to approach it and go into it. And then as soon as you're into it, the realities kind of start to hit you, of daily business pressures and timelines. So you can't really focus all your time on all of these amazing
Mm.
inspirational leadership stuff or things you wanted to do, um, or you had this amazing impression of really focusing on developing your people. Um, but again, you've got all these immediate pressures of things you need to deliver on. Or as you say, you're sitting in meetings and you just don't get around to a lot of these things. Um, so I do think ultimately the best way is to try and find some kind of practical way to kind of test the water and try it out. And you don't always need to be in a actual leadership role. Um, so even when you're still doing your own thing, you can start reaching out to your team around you or other people in the business, and increasingly start exploring talking more and more about their problems, less and less about what you're doing and what you're busy with. Um, because then you can really start to get a feel for, am I comfortable or do I enjoy focusing more on other people and their problems? Or do I enjoy more focusing on my own problem? So it's kind of that part of it that you need to kind of practically start testing out, and then see how you can practically start helping these people, either by transferring knowledge or um, kind of spending time with them where you kind of helping them figure out how to tackle their problems or their projects. So I think that's kind of one of the first, maybe more tangible ways that you can kind of start testing out this management leadership thing.
It's a really interesting point you make, because I've never thought of it that way. But being selfless almost in your role, start looking at other people's problems, start reaching out and try and seek out those opportunities to basically act like a leader. It's that act as if you're already in that position, and see if you enjoy it, see if you get a buzz for it, see if it gives you the same enjoyment, if not more, than what you're doing at the moment. And I think that's a really interesting way of doing that. And maybe that can give you a bit of a sign whether actually it's always going to be a bit of a leap into leadership and taking that and transitioning, but maybe it gives you a better idea of, is this for me? Was there any other aspects that helped you with that transition, away from hands-on to more hands-off as well? Is there anything else that you did?
Yeah, I think mentorship is really really helpful. So I had a few managers myself that um, really kind of just helped me along on the journey. Um, so a lot of talking with them around, how would you approach this? I'm tackling it like this, and this is what I'm struggling with. How would you have tackled it? So I think a lot of mentorship and potentially also talking to kind of the leaders around you as you may be starting to embark on this journey.
Did you
just kind of sharing.
Yeah, exactly. Did you have anyone that was a shining example for you that again made you think, leadership might be for me, because I can see, this person doing it, and I love the way they do this or how they dealt with that? Did you have someone like that within the business? And to be honest, did they actually say to you, you'd be good at leadership, or have you thought about going into leadership? Did they broach it with you as well?
Yeah. So definitely at one point, especially when I was in that very difficult space where I had kind of been holding on to staying technical for a couple of years, and it was now kind of coming to the point where um, I kind of had to make a move, or decide where I was going to go next. Um, So during that time, my manager at that stage, I suppose really supported me in terms of the confidence she had in me, that I can do that. oh, I can do this leadership thing. And yeah, as I mentioned, also kind of having that open relationship with her, where I was able to kind of talk through some of the things I was struggling with, some of the things I was unsure about. Um, because I think what's really powerful is if you see other people that some of them come from very similar journeys to you,
Mm, mm,
um, or from very similar places, where you can kind of see, yes, this person was in relatively similar situation to where I'm now. They also were pretty technical, and now as a leader, they're actually doing a very good job of it. So it just kind of gives you that, I suppose, additional level of confidence that I can do this from where I'm currently at. It is possible to move into a leadership space where I can be a really good leadership or a really good leader. And I can kind of increasingly let go of this. It's almost a bit of a crutch uh, sometimes, where you've kind of got this dependency on your technical skills. This is what I've been trained in. This is what I'm good at, and I'm a bit hesitant to let go of it because what leg am I going to stand on then?
yeah. Moving out of
This
your
is kind
comfort
of
zone.
where my skills sit. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
totally moving out of your comfort zone, and it's difficult, but by the sounds of it, it can be massively rewarding if it's right for you. And I think knowing you've made some really good points there, that knowing you've got a safety net. A support network of leaders around you, other people that you can not only learn from, but can sort of be a bit of a soundboard when things are happening. Sounds like it's crucial. Maybe that's one of the reasons leadership doesn't work out for people, if that's not if that sort of infrastructure is not there for them. So yeah, really interesting point. And where do you see, where are you on your leadership journey now? How long have you been in a leadership role, and where do you see that maybe going in future?
Yeah, yeah. So I started, I think it was end of 2016. So it's about what, coming on for
Yeah,
towards 5 years now. Um, yeah, and I suppose I kind of started out where I was kind of supervising um, as kind of the leader of the team. Um, and before that, yeah, I kind of started working on more strategic projects, which kind of helped me to kind of test the waters of being in more of a leadership role. And I suppose over the last couple of years, I've kind of been through that stage which you spoke about, where you're kind of in junior management. You now spending a lot of time um, kind of managing people, a lot of them very junior. So you're spending a lot of time working with them on things that you can probably do very quickly, but that's going to take them much longer. Uh, and you kind of need to work through that process of, how do I work with this person to guide them on their journey and through this process so that they can ultimately figure this thing out for themselves. And that can be very time consuming, and you end up spending a lot of time with other people, just kind of guiding them through um, their projects and what they're working on. Where I'm looking to move increasingly now is to a space where you can then start having more of a strategic leadership impact. So as I mentioned, I've been lucky enough to, when I was still doing individual work, get involved in some strategic projects. Um, but yeah, it's now really about, how do you start influencing your data strategy for your whole business, or how are you going to structure your analytics teams, or how do you upskill um, people around data in your organization. So those kind of more strategic data related enterprise wide projects, that's something that I'm really excited to get increasingly involved in.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting, to be honest. And again, it's just taking that next step. And but I'm sure you'll do. I'm sure you'll do fantastic in that element of it as well, for sure. So, I mean, just to sum things up here, then, what advice would you give to someone who's maybe thinking about getting into a leadership role, or maybe is on that transition right now? Is there any overall sort of advice that you'd pass their way that could help them during that process? Because by the sounds of this conversation, by the sounds of what we spoke about before, it can be a difficult process. It's not for everyone, but like we said, it's massively rewarding if it's the right sort of thing for you. So yeah, is there anything that you'd pass on?
Yeah, I'd suggest as soon as you get practical opportunities, give it a try. Um, because, yeah, I don't know, from what I've personally experienced, you just never know whether you're going to be any good at it, or whether it's going to work for you, or whether you're going to enjoy it until you've tried it. So as soon as you start to get opportunities around it, I would suggest give it a go. Try it out. It's potentially not for everybody, and then I think it's great that increasingly organizations are developing more technical career paths as well, where you could potentially stay in a more technical role and kind of progress to different levels. So that's I think it's great that increasingly you've got that option. So it might be where you end up, but I would suggest give the leadership thing a go, because it can just be massively rewarding if it is something that does work out for you.
Yeah, really good advice. And yeah, I really like that part about just seize the opportunities, all the opportunities you can within your business, your role right now. Start reaching out, start finding out other people's problems, try and look at things from different people's perspectives by the sounds of it, and then see if you get that drive for it, really. Perfect. And I know you do a lot around self-development, reading, talks, all that type of thing. Is there any resource or anything you're looking at right now that you'd probably recommend people checking out if they're in this space?
Yeah, I personally really enjoy studying and learning. Um, so I'm going to start studying with my master's in data science next year. And I do so much technical online courses and things, and leadership courses and things all the time, because I really enjoy it. But ultimately, I suppose over the last year, what I've seen work best in terms of really just developing myself and sharing ideas and best practice, it's been, I don't know, networking. And yeah, something like LinkedIn has been really great for me over this last year. Because I think it's in the conversations with other people and in sharing learnings that you really get, I suppose, more practical, real examples, and more real, I suppose, learnings in terms of what's actually working right now in different setups and different environments. So I would really encourage people, reach out, engage other people, wherever it is, whatever platform you see works for you. Reach out to other people, both inside your organization and outside of it. Build those networks and start sharing more from your side as well, because you've probably got very valuable learnings that others can learn from as well.
Yeah, that's a really fantastic point. It's about giving and sort of receiving that type of information as well. And one of the things I love about working in data is everyone shares their knowledge. I've not met one person that isn't open to sharing what they know and to sharing their experiences, good and bad. And that's what's great. And it's great to see that people are doing that, because it's the only way really that everyone can keep moving forward. So doing things like this is yeah, it's really important, and I really appreciate your time with this one, Michiel. I wish you all the best with the studies, and your role and your development into more of a strategic level as well. I'm sure you'll do fantastic. So yeah, let's keep in touch. But yeah, it's been great speaking to you.
Brilliant. No, thank you so much. Really enjoyed the chat, and yeah, it's such an honor to be able to share some of my learnings, because yeah, I think that's ultimately where the great satisfaction sits. We've kind of, as people, we're constantly developing and evolving how we work within data.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Well, brilliant. Thanks for your time, Michiel.
Great. Thanks. All the best.